So this is our interview assignment. I'm Emma Bagalki,
And I'm Lee McDermott.
and today we're going to interview my uncle. So his name is Tim Grossi. He is the previous owner of the restaurant Scafa's, located in Fredericksburg, Virginia. After selling Scafa's and leaving the restaurant business, Mr. Grossi held numerous managerial jobs within the food business, including a corporate managerial position for the Northeastern gas station, GPM. However, in terms for this project, we'll be referring to his ownership time at Scafa.
So for the record, could you please state your name, title, and position when you worked at Scafa's?
Okay, my name is Tim Grossi, and I was the owner of the restaurant along with my wife, Michelle.
So what is your level of education prior to owning Scafa's?
I've got a BBS in finance from Marshall University, and I was halfway through an MBA, but never quite finished an MBA. So BBS plus.
What past experiences do you have in order to start your restaurant?
Working in high school, one of my first jobs was working in a pizza shop. It was a different type of pizza shop that was not pies. It was served by the slice in squares. Uh, Learning how to cook the sauce, bake the pizza, make dough, press the dough, uh, gave me a big background in pizza, or a nice background in pizza. And attached to the pizza shop was a restaurant that eventually moved over into the restaurant. Started off washing dishes, making salads, and then eventually was cooking in the restaurant. So by my senior year, I was one of the full-time cooks and just fell in love with the business.
So what steps did you take in order to get in this position, or basically to start your restaurant?
The moving from there, my first job out of college, well, all through college, I worked in restaurants as waiter, busboys, worked in a pizza shop. At one time, I held two jobs, putting myself through college, but mainly was in a restaurant business. Tended bar a little bit at the Knights of Columbus. Did a lot of odd jobs, mainly dealing with the restaurant business. Out of college, I took a short job for about 9 months in Manhattan. So I lived in New York for about a year, and then came back to my hometown and ended up leasing my first restaurant. Had that for 6 years in West Virginia, right outside of Pittsburgh. Uh, Left there and went with a cafeteria chain. So I was with a cafeteria chain for about a year. Left there and went as a chef at a country club for about 3 years, and then decided to get out of it altogether and went in the convenience industry for 10, 11 years. During that time frame, my wife and I purchased a small um, neighborhood type pizza shop that was the owner was just going to retire. So we basically were able to purchase it for relatively an inexpensive price. And we the main focus we had was to have fun, and when it was not going to be fun, I was still working another job, so my wife was taking care of that business. I was working 3 4 nights a week there, but we were just wanted to have fun in the business, and all the different experiences that I had led up to that small pizza shop, which we ended up adding steaks and a wine and beer, and eventually a liquor license. And we grew it quite well, and had a good time in it. If that answers your question.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it being
Yes,
the owner?
immensely. It was a neighborhood. It was a neighborhood type restaurant. On Friday nights, everybody knew everybody, and it was just I hate to say a big party, but it was like a big party. Everybody knew each other. We even had on first Saturday of every month, we had something called guest chef, where anybody, any customer, can be the chef for the night. We charged a flat $10 a plate, no matter what they made. It was a flat $10. And we had all kinds of different, from Indian to Cornish hens to you name it. Have English meals, Slovak meals. The idea was to get as many people, their neighbors, their friends, their families to come in, and it was a form of advertising for us. But they got to serve, they got to be a chef for the night, under our supervision, of course, but the locals got to be a chef for tonight because everybody's always wanted to own a restaurant, right? I mean, that's the title of my book. So you want to own a restaurant. If I ever wrote one, that would be it. But that it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun there, and circumstances changed, so that's when we sold it.
What are some of the responsibilities as a person in a leadership position?
In a leadership position in the restaurant, you're talking the restaurant, correct?
Yes.
Not just leadership in general, but in a restaurant, it's about pace and tempo. You have to have the tempo set down, or you have to have the tempo set where everything continues to flow. You want to create an atmosphere that your employees are enjoying what they're doing. It's very hard to do, especially when you're busy, but everybody knows that in the restaurant business, it's 8 hours of prep and 3 hours of dinner. You know, and then at 3 hours, everything has to happen. So the tempo you have makes a huge difference, and you have to define the objectives to your employees before service begins. And my saying was, it doesn't get hotter. So I had one basic rule, and every employee knew this rule, that when the plates were ready to go out, they had to go out. You dropped what you were doing, and the food went out. So I could hear some war stories that my daughter and others have talked about, but that was my main goal, was to make sure that the food went out hot. People will wait for their meal, especially if you're very busy. Customers understand, but they don't understand when you wait for a meal and it comes out cold. So my leadership position was always take the food out hot, and it can be overlooked as long as it's a good meal.
What would you say your strengths and weaknesses are regarding management?
Ooh, this is a toughie. I should let others answer that. I'll talk weaknesses first, because weaknesses, I think, sometimes is what people remember rather than your strengths. But I'm very impatient when it comes to food service. I am very, very impatient, like I just said, with food being hot and people not taken care of. I could be a little bit overbearing without the momentary explanation of why I'm being overbearing. But in regards to the food, that was always my main concern. The strengths, I was always inclusive with the employees. They knew exactly what was expected of them, and they were part of the restaurant. I mean, customers would come in and ask for different employees to cook for them, which I just thought was great. I delegated a lot of the cooking once I was secure that they knew how to cook. And it's pasta is different. Pasta is a little harder to cook, because the worst thing you could do is send out overcooked pasta. That's horrible. But there was that type of learning curve, and once they hit that curve, I let them go ahead. I even let them develop some of the recipes for the specials and stuff. And I guess what it comes down to is it's servant leadership. I mean, my strength is that I believe in servant leadership. I won't ask anybody to do what I won't do myself. And especially when it comes to training, the best training is when they see what is expected, what a dish looks like, or what a meal should look like, how it's prepared. When they see that, you can't explain it to them, you have to show them. So, and that goes on to my other jobs, my other careers. I still believe in servant leadership. And you just have to be inclusive and forthright with the employees. You have to let them know what's expected of them, and then let them go. They're going to make mistakes, but you let it go, and customers understand when things happen.
So what were some of your daily managerial tasks?
It's all routine. You just, I mean, in a restaurant, it's pretty basic, especially when you're actually a working owner. I mean, you just make sure everything's done. You know, you have to get ready for the service, whether it's lunch or it's dinner, you're always getting ready for the service. And that's aside from the ordering tasks and the putting away the products and, you know, when they come in and ordering the alcohol and the beer and the wine. And the wine was always fun because we have about 10 different wineries that I used to purchase from here, and I'd go out to the wineries and buy by the case. So that was a lot of fun. But daily, it's the just being ready for that service.
How would you describe your management style? I think you've already done it, but
Yeah, it's servant leadership. I mean, I'm a true believer in that. You can't ask people to do things that they don't understand or they haven't seen you do yourself. So,
I guess kind of same thing, but what specifically do you think management skills have helped you lead effectively?
well, there's nothing in the restaurant part that I haven't done, from washing dishes through cooking through managing. So, uh, knowing how I felt. Um, I don't know if you ever saw that movie Coming to America with Eddie Murphy and Louis Anderson is washing dishes, and he's telling him about working at McDowell's. I think it was McDowell's, but he says, you know, right now I'm just washing dishes, but sooner or later they're going to put me on salads, and that's when you get the big bucks. You know, and it's the same type of effect in a restaurant. You know, moving up through the ladder, you know, every job that's there, and how to lead when you did that job yourself makes it much easier, because you know what the expectations of the employee are and what will give them an incentive to work hard and to work effectively.
so restaurants have a lot of busy moving parts. How did you find it best to manage your time effectively, efficiently?
I tried to make everything as routine as possible. You know, it's time to do this, time to do, you know, time to make the salads, time to wash the lettuce, time to order, you know, time to put away groceries, you know, whatever it was, you have to have a routine. If you don't have a routine, then it's just chaos, because if you're in your routine and something happens outside of that routine, you can effectively deal with it and then go back to the routine of wherever you need to catch up. Again, it was all for getting ready for service. So there were certain expectations that you needed to have product wise, you know, for that service to begin. You know, you couldn't wait for dinner to make pizza if you didn't have dough ready. So dough was always a morning routine type item. So you have that routine, and your time is basically manages you. It's not, you don't manage your time; it manages you in that respect, because it is all routine.
What was the most difficult part of managing?
It's definitely the employees. It's always the employees. I am. Uh, there are. Put it this way: I had my first restaurant for 6 years, and I had a second restaurant for 7 years. And in that time, in my first restaurant, I fired one employee, outright fired one employee, and he was stealing. I caught him stealing. Um, and in the second restaurant, I think we had to let one lady go because she came in trashed. She had a drinking problem, and she came in intoxicated. So we had to send her home, and even had her come back and talk. And when she came back to talk about keeping her job, she was under the influence again. So we had to just let her go. And I think that 7 years there and 13 years, I think we literally fired 2 people. I'm very empathetic towards employees, but that's where it stops. You have to be firm. You have to develop your expectations and let them know what the expectations are, period. Now, we had a lot of employees come and go. That's just the nature of the business. But managing people is always the hardest part, and developing that expectation, letting them know what is needed from them is key. If they don't know what's really actually needed from them, you're not going to have a good staff. Your staffing is everything.
So what was it that you actually looked for in your employees?
Honesty is number one, and honesty is, if you steal from me, that's basically you're telling me a lie. You're not being honest. So thieves and honesty go hand in hand. So when I look at an employee, the first thing I'm looking for is honesty. Will you do the job as we ask? And then the second thing is integrity. In the food service business, you can't be, what's the word? Lackadaisical. You have to be on top. You're feeding people. People can get sick. People, your reputation can be ruined from one bad meal. One bad meal, that customer will tell 10 customers that they had a bad meal. So in an employee, you have to have integrity, that they're going to do the right thing, and that they're going to make sure that what they're producing is actually the way it should be. And that goes down from washing dishes. I mean, same deal. If you're a bad dishwasher, then why would I make you a cook if you're not a good dishwasher? Or as you move up through the ranks, from dishwasher to waiter or waitress, or to the line cook, or even sous chef, the integrity has to be there. The integrity of their production has to be there. That's a better way of putting it. So in an employee, I'm looking for that honesty.
Sorry, the thing is, what are strategies that you use to improve the productivity or performance of your employees?
I've done a lot of different things. Anytime you have incentives for the employees, they're going to react differently. And of course, there's monetary incentives, but there's also other incentives such as positions, going from, like I said, moving up through the ladder, going to assistant manager, and then to manager. Those are the incentives that will improve. Plus, I think having an atmosphere, team building atmosphere, is very important. What we used to do is we would every now and then we'd have a team building activity. We did paintball one time. That didn't work out too well because they got a little crazy, but we did do paintball. And then we had a movie night, or movie morning. Really, it was a movie morning. Had a couple people just work the lunch, and everybody else who went to the movies. And then we used to have game nights too, where we'd pick a game, and of course I'd have drinks and food and stuff, but we'd sit down and just play games, whether it was poker, Texas Hold'em, or cards, or Monopoly. It didn't matter. We just had a game night where everybody was there together. And they loved that. They had a good time with that. But it's just all incentives.
How important are the interpersonal relationships with employees to you?
They're extremely important. It's hard to explain, but an easy way to explain it is that employees are the most important thing in your restaurant. I mean, they make or break you. There's a great book by an author called Chip Conlon. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but Chip Conlon had come up with an employee, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but he put it into his business, which was boutique hotels, but the employees came first. Everything came for what was done for the employees, because the employees took care of the customers. You didn't. The employees took care of the customers. So their whole focus, and then a lot of companies, Wawa for one, a lot of companies have taken that hierarchy and have used that in their organizations in order to make their employees happier, for lack of a better term. But if you ever have the opportunity to read it, it's a great book. The name is Chip Conlon. But employees make your business, period. They make your business. You have to do things to make sure that they are well trained, and that they're happy.
So I guess you kind of answered this in question 14.
Yeah.
So
We move on.
yeah, we can do 17. So kind of same thing. What kind of disciplinary actions, I guess, did you take with your employees?
That was a little hard. What do you mean as far as disciplinary? What, put them in a corner, or?
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not.
Productive in the corner.
I mean, there really is no disciplinary action. I mean, either you're still employed or you're not.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't do it. If someone stole from me or lied to me outright, I would. That's when I fire somebody. I mean, that really is a lying meaning, oh, I didn't put anything in there, and they did, I mean, it's hurting the integrity of what you're doing. But performance reviews, you have to do performance reviews, period, to let people know that if they continue to have issues burning products and stuff, then you use performance based information as far as write-ups or whatever you want to call it. But you have to document so that when you do eventually terminate an employee for something that is that they're not stealing or anything. But if you really do want to get rid of an employee because of the issues that they're having, you have to have a paper trail. So the paper trail is always through, first you have verbal communication, and then after that you start using written communication where they sign the actual disciplinary action, and after 2 or 3 and whatever your policy is, then you have to terminate that employee, and that employee will have the documentation to know that, if they go for unemployment or whatever reason why they were let go. That's just standard business.
So as a business owner, what are some of the biggest challenges and rewards that you would face? And give us an example or two.
I think that the biggest challenge is time versus income. That's always, when owning a business, there's, first of all, you're reaching into your pocket to make that payroll. You're reaching into pocket to make rent. The American dream is to have a business, which is great, but I was 7-Eleven franchise, and there are some franchisees that bought convenience stores that basically were just buying a job. You spend X amount of money to make X amount of money per year, and you're not going to make much more than what that business is going to give you. And it's the same thing with a restaurant. You hear about these restaurants, these mom and pops restaurants that have 6, 7, 8, 9 employees. You're not going to make a whole bunch of money, and you have to weigh to say, how much time am I putting into this, as opposed to how much income I'm making. And if the income if the time outweighs the income, then you have to figure out what are you going to do in order to increase your income and basically not have to spend more time. No matter what, you're going to spend time, no matter what you do, whether it's restaurants or whatever business you're in, you have to pay your dues. You have to put the time and work. However, there are some businesses that the rewards are much higher than other businesses. And I think that's the biggest challenge in the restaurant business. You could even have $1.5 million a year restaurant where you're still only making 5 figures. And that's hard. That's hard to comprehend, to go through all that work and have all that money coming in and realize that your rent's too high, your payroll's too high, your food cost is too high, whatever it might be. So the biggest challenge is making sure that what you're doing is going to give you enough income for you to be happy with it.
So what do you think your greatest accomplishment is in your career as a leader or owner?
Well, contrary to what my daughter and her friends say, the employees that I had at Scafa's, we're still close. Like I said, there was only one person that we had to let go. And other than that, as they came and went, I mean, these kids were in high school and then they went to college, and some would come back for the summers for college and work and stuff. And they're still very, very friendly to us, to me, and my wife more so than me, but they're still very friendly to us. And I think they still look at us as the owner. I think that makes a big difference when you run a business, and customers and ex-employees still come up and have a kind word to say.
Well, I think this might be the last one. Would you choose to do it all over again?
Yes, I would.